Well, hello, and welcome to episode 72 of Drink the Movies. I'm Brian here, as always, with Michaela. Michaela, you are living it up beachside this week, but, you still wanted to come on and talk about some movies, have a good time, talk about some cocktails, because we have a good one this week. But how is it going? How is the beach? What have you been up to? What have you been drinking? Have you been watching anything while you're there? What's going on?
I have been watching a little bit. So there's a bunch of trashy reality TV that I never get to watch. And so there's this show called The Ultimatum, which is total reality. It's awful and I love it. I think people love reality TV because as messed up as other people, we all feel in times of our life, we can always look at, Honey Boo Boo and be like, at least my life is better than that. Right. We can always look at some of these reality shows, even like The Bachelor, Bachelorette, where you're like, yeah, I'm good single. It's fine. I'm okay.
Yeah,
and so I'm watching this show called The Ultimatum, and it's about, I don't know, 5 couples, and each one of them has given another one an ultimatum, and it's total awful. It's just all these people should be single. It's great. So I watched a little bit of that because I'm really trying to spend a lot more time on the beach and less time in front of a TV. But it's kind of cold. Like it's warming up, but yesterday was a little chilly in the evening. So I got to watch what we're talking about this week. We got a recommendation, or a request rather, to
That's right. Yeah, we have another request, and this one came with a gift. So we're going to be talking about that here when we get to the cocktail section. But yeah, that sounds like a good time. You should probably spend the time at the beach, on the beach, watch your reality shows if you want. We just started rewatching Better Call Saul, which is incredible. They just added a new season onto Netflix, and I think the new season is coming out onto TV, or it's already started, or it's about to. But we'd watched it and hadn't kind of kept up on it, and so we went back to the start. So I've been watching that, catching back up on that, and it's phenomenal. I really like Better Call Saul, so definitely check that out if you like that world of Breaking Bad. Even if you don't really love that world of Breaking Bad, you should still watch it because Bob Odenkirk is amazing, and the show's great, the writing's great, and it's fantastic. So give that a watch, and let us know if there's any other good TV shows we should be catching up on now that we're done with our Oscar season, because we're just ready to binge some stuff on Netflix and stuff like that. So let us know. But Michaela, we have a lot to talk about today, so why don't we take a quick break, and we'll be right back to talk about this week's cocktail. All right. So as we mentioned in the first section, we got a gift this week, Michaela. Well, specifically, you got a gift. So we have a friend of the podcast who made our awesome coasters. If you've seen those, if you saw our Oscar coasters, made those. And he also made something else that was pretty great. Well, why don't you tell everyone about it, Michaela?
He made this most amazing Guinness syrup. He came by and was like, hey, I got a great idea for a cocktail. And I said, okay. And he was like, he loves the podcast, which is so sweet. And he has this custom bespoke company whose name I'm going to look up, and we're going to plug it. But he does really amazing bespoke woodworking stuff. So he makes like everything from our coasters to charcuterie boards to cornhole games out of wood. He does this really, really amazing stuff. But he also loves cocktails. So he came over one Sunday fun day and was like, hey, I've got this Guinness syrup I've made, and I've got this really cool idea for a cocktail. And I said, all right, let's check it out. And so this is what we're going to call the Irish breakfast.
Okay, yeah, had me at Guinness syrup. That sounded delicious. So when you told me that this is what we were doing, I was very excited about it. It sounded interesting and good. And to tell everyone a little bit about the syrup. So Tyler was nice enough to share with us kind of the recipe for how he did this. It basically, he just made a simple syrup with Guinness and sugar. So I want to say it was equal parts of the Guinness and sugar. And you just heat that up, boil it, dissolve the sugar, let that come together, cool it down, and you have your syrup ready to go for the Irish breakfast. Or you could probably do a lot of things. You could probably put it on pancakes, and that would be delicious too. So,
yeah. It's real good because it's not super sweet, but it's very Guinnessy. So if you're not going to like Guinness, if you don't like Guinness, you might not like this syrup. But if you like Guinness, this stuff is amazing. So like it's got that creaminess and all of that super, super tasty stuff. So this drink calls for 1 ounce of espresso, 1 ounce or 2 ounces of any of your Irish whiskeys.
Mm-hmm.
And we had some Jameson, but we decided last minute to use something else. What did we use, Brian?
We used Tullamore Dew.
Yes,
If you've had Jameson or Tullamore Dew, they're pretty similar in taste. I like using Tullamore Dew in cocktails a little bit more. That's what we used in our Irish coffee back in our Elf episode. But yeah, you could really use any Irish whiskey you want. But yeah, we used Tullamore Dew.
Yeah, it was tasty. And so what you do is you're going to take a shaker. You're going to put in your Guinness syrup. That's 1/2 ounce of Guinness syrup. You're going to put in your 2 ounces of Irish whiskey, and you're going to put in your 1 ounce of espresso. The espresso should be not right out of the espresso machine. It needs to cool off a little bit. And here's why. We are going to add an egg white into this. Okay. Do not put any ice in your shaker at first. Go ahead and do what we call a dry shake, and then add the ice afterwards, shake it up again, and pour it into a coupe glass. And what you're going to see is that egg white emulsified into this really beautiful foam that leaves kind of a head of beer looking kind of effect on to your drink. But it's also going to add this really creamy, silky texture. It doesn't taste like egg white, but you definitely want to make sure that you're not making it too hot with the espresso. So, because you don't want to risk that kind of cooking, because that would taste weird. So what I would do, leave your newly made espresso out for just a second or two, just to get it so where it's not super, super hot before putting it in and dry shaking it. And go ahead and add your ice, shake it again, and then put it into your cup and drink it, because it's real good.
That's right. Yeah, it is real good. It's kind of chocolatey from that Guinness syrup and coffee-y. It's fairly sweet from the syrup, I think, but yeah, it's delicious. We didn't garnish ours with anything, but you could totally do like a spritz of some like orange rind, and do just a little bit of orange peel on there as a garnish. You could garnish it with a couple of espresso beans probably on top. That egg white would hold that up. So you can play around with it. I think that the orange actually sounds really good now that I just said that out loud. So maybe we'll have to go back and revisit this one and give that a try with a little bit of orange to it. But yeah, this was really good. Like I said, it was chocolatey, it was creamy, it was Guinnessy, had a little bit of sweetness from that Irish whiskey. Really good. So definitely play around with making some syrups. I wouldn't have ever thought to make a Guinness syrup. So I'm glad Tyler whipped that up for us.
Yeah. Bespoke Provisions Woodworking is what the name of Tyler's company is. So if you love anything made out of wood, as far as like barware, any coasters, anything, he can do pretty much anything, which is cool. What I love is he's got this really nifty like shot bar looking thing where he's got a ring for lime juice, and then like an area where you can put your glass with the lime and then rim it with your salt, and then have shots of tequila. And it's really cool. He's made a lot of different things on his website. And he should make a cocktail recipe book, maybe, because this one's really good.
Yeah, this is really good. So let us know if you whip up some of this syrup and try an Irish breakfast, because we want to know about that and how you liked it. But for now, Michaela, if we're going to have an Irish breakfast as our cocktail, we better find a movie, one that probably takes place in Boston, is set on St. Patrick's Day, and deals with a lot of vengeance, I guess. So why don't we take a quick break, and we will be right back to chat about this week's movie, Boondock Saints.
Spoiler warning for the Boondock Saints. If you've not yet seen Boondock Saints and you'd like to know who lives, because there's only a small group of people who does, at the end of this film, please press pause, because we're going to talk about how everyone dies in this movie, and all about the gunfights and all about the violence. We're going to talk about all of that. So if you don't want to hear any of that, press pause, go fix yourself an Irish breakfast, come back after you've watched the movie, and we can continue our chat about it.
That's right. And if you've not seen it, you've had plenty of time because this came out in 1999. It was directed and written by Troy Duffy, and it stars Willem Dafoe and an up-and-coming Sean Patrick Flannery and Norman Reedus from The Walking Dead fame. He wasn't Walking Dead famous yet. No one knew who Norman Reedus was, but he was putting in a lot of work, and this was kind of his first big movie break, I guess you could say. Kind of in a way, because this spawned a sequel, had Boondock Saints 2, and apparently they are in the works of beginning to film Boondock Saints 3. So we'll have to see what happens here with the MacManus brothers when we when we get that. But yeah, we're going to be talking about Boondock Saints today. So as I mentioned in the drink section, this takes place in South Boston. It is St. Patrick's Day. We have our brothers here. We have Connor and Murphy MacManus, played by Sean Patrick Flannery and Norman Reedus, and they get us started on this one, Michaela.
They sure do. So I think they're supposed to be Irish, like truly Irish. They're not just so they're from Ireland because they both have accents. They must have moved over as children. You're not really sure what the backstory is, but they're in a pub, and someone. Well, first we should talk about the very opening scene, which is actually one of the things that I really love about this movie, is how it shows these two brothers. They live in a really gross apartment. Like it's totally nasty in South Boston. They work in a meatpacking plant. They don't make a lot of money. They're very salt of the earth people, right? But they're asked to train up this new person in the meatpacking plant, and they're kind of showing her around. And she's like super tall. She's like taller than them. She outweighs them. Like she's a very strong looking person, and she kind of scares me. But they're not scared of her at all. And so they are trying to show her the ropes, and they use the term rule of thumb. And she freaks out and she's like, do you know what that even means? Your words really matter. Back in the olden days, it was okay for men to beat their wives as long as they used something that was no thicker than their thumb. And that's the rule of thumb. And so she found it really offensive. And they end up getting into this big fight about it. But you can see like they respect her at the end of it, because she punches them right back when they kind of mess with her. And it's actually one of my favorite scenes, and it's over in the first like 45 seconds of the movie. But it shows that they really, I don't know. I think they left this scene in there because it shows that they take to heart what people say, because they never mention that again. Right. And this whole idea of these two brothers becoming like vigilantes for justice are really, I think that's kind of where it starts, where we're seeing them kind of take what's given to them and learn from it and move on. I don't know. Maybe they just thought it was funny, but I thought I was trying to be kind of esoteric in the way I thought that the opening scene was created.
Right. Yeah. So this film opens. Yeah. Like you mentioned, they're at the meatpacking plant. You actually get a lot of cool, like aerial, it's probably shot from like a helicopter, aerial shots of like South Boston, of the church, which I guess was not even an actual Catholic church, because the Catholic Church wouldn't let them film there. But they're in mass. You see them kind of sitting there praying. They just walk up. They help themselves to communion and walk out. And kind of the priest is, doing his thing up there. And it kind of ends with the priest saying, we must all fear evil, but we must also fear indifferent men. And that's kind of the tone that we are taking into this, is that the MacManus brothers are not going to be indifferent men. They're going to take law and justice and the vengeance of God into their own hands, and they're going to stand up to what they view as corruption and bad people in their town. And in this film, that is summarized as like the Russian mob, I guess, more or less, who are running drugs and guns through there. So they're going to take out the trash, so to speak. And we get in kind of this next scene right after this meatpacking plant. You'll see a crime scene. They find there's a couple of dead guys in this alley. The police are there trying to figure it out, but apparently the South Boston police in this story are not very great. So you're going to have to call in. You're going to have to call in a ringer from the FBI by the name of Paul Smecker, who's played by Willem Dafoe, and he waltzes in to set these guys straight.
That's right. And I think one of the things that makes this film so compelling and why it's still this sleeper hit and it's got this cult following is because of Willem Dafoe. His acting in this is amazing. He's a very interesting character. He goes into these crime scenes that we see all along the way. And, there's one guy who thinks that he knows what's happened and he can explain it. And in this case, there are two men in an alleyway. One of them's got his pants are open and he's got bandages on his butt. But he's dead. He's been crushed to death and they don't really understand why. And then there's another guy who's also dead and he has a bandage around his head. And so they're like, what happened? And this guy's like, oh, well, it's obvious, man. They're bad guys and they were in this alley and some really big guy just sat on this dude until he died. And, that's the level of competency that we're dealing with from the police department. So of course, Willem Dafoe's that is absolutely not what happened. And he paints this picture and the way that the storytelling is done and the way that Willem Dafoe's character, Agent Smecker, the way that he kind of pieces all these things together is really cool. And so what actually happened was there was a brawl the night before where the MacManus brothers kind of defended their pub because their pub was being kind of shaken. They were a victim of a shakedown from this Russian mob saying, hey, we're going to close this bar and you're going to give us all your money. And they said, no, we're not doing that. And so there's a big bar fight. And, one of them set fire to one of the mob guys' pants. And so they went to go get patched up, but then they found where these two brothers live and were coming to really murder him, I guess. And they ended up fighting back in a really unconventional way involving a toilet seat. And I don't know how they did that. In all honesty, it's really this is not for kids. We should say that. Don't take your kids to see Boondock Saints. Don't let them watch it. There's so much violence and there's so much fruity language that is not good. Maybe it was okay to say some of these things in 1999. It's not okay. It's not okay. That's and I didn't realize how bad it was until I'm halfway through this. But
yeah, that's right. Yeah, some of it didn't age particularly well, but yeah, you get kind of Willem Dafoe's kind of piecing together this crime scene, and that for me is kind of one of the more interesting parts of this. So basically, the MacManus brothers are going on these vengeance like hits of these mobsters, and Willem Dafoe's coming in kind of after the fact, telling how he's piecing this crime scene together, and then it's doing almost like a flashback where you're seeing what happened, to basically create this. And probably for me, the most compelling part of this is it's just kind of Willem Dafoe is getting pulled more and more into these scenes. So the first one, he kind of, he tells you what happens and then you see the scene of what happens, but gradually he's getting more and more kind of involved in having the scene play out around him. I think that for me is probably the most interesting. I will say in this first kind of murder spree that the MacManus brothers are on. There's some weird techno music that plays during it, which doesn't play in the other ones. It's 1999. It's the same year as The Matrix, so I guess the techno was the theme. But
that was really the way to go. I mean, this was really like an Irish non-blue pill telling version of The Matrix. That's exactly how to describe it.
It was an Irish Matrix. Yeah, that's right. So he pieces this together. You see the flashback of what they did. Like you said, they threw a toilet off of the fifth floor of this building. It crushes the guy, and the one guy accidentally shoots the other guy while he's falling down. Pretty crazy stuff. They end up bringing, they're talking in the police station. They're like, the people that killed these mobsters, they're out of town now for sure. No way they're coming in. But of course, the MacManus brothers just waltz right in there. They go in. They're talking to Agent Smecker about what's going on. they go on to tell him that they can speak like 5 or 6 different languages. And he's like, well, why do you work at a meatpacking plant? And that's dropped. We don't ever revisit that again in the film. But at this point, they're kind of adversaries, I guess. I don't know. Agent Smecker definitely knows that they did it. And they definitely don't care that he knows that they did it. And they're going to keep doing it. And he's kind of like this dog just chasing them through this vendetta, I guess, that they're out against this Russian mob.
It's interesting because this starts out as, hey, this, we were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and we got very lucky by, killing these 2 guys that were going to kill us, and it was total self-defense. So of course, Sergeant Smecker's like, well, you're free to go. I mean, it's fine. But then they have this moment where they're like, hey, maybe God is trying to tell us something, because these are deeply, deeply religious gentlemen, the MacManus brothers, and they're like, maybe we should go and rid the world of these,
the Russian mobsters that are there.
Well, so there's this whole scene that I totally missed the first couple times I saw this, where they tried to lay out the land of what's happening in Boston. So Boston has this Italian mob, right? That's really strong, but the Russians are moving in, and the Italians don't like it. The Italian mafia says that the Russians are unwelcome. So there is a guy by the name of Rocco, who's part of the Italian mob, I think. I'm not sure. And he is kind of friends with these guys. And he's like, oh man, all of these bad guys, they're in the mafia, and they get off. Like, they get booked for murdering someone, but they never go to jail, versus some of these other individuals, they go to jail and they pay their price, but these guys never do. And so these 2 brothers, as well as Rocco, kind of band together to come and try to be these vigilantes and go fight off these bad guys, right? But they don't deal with like I want to say regular murders. It's all about organized crime.
Right.
They want to get these folks.
Yeah, they're very specific in their goals and ambitions, and then the story then kind of at this point, Paul Smecker tells them to go, so they go to this I don't know place. It's actually kind of a neat shot. They pull open. There's a big huge Irish flag, and then there's just like, I don't know, like 10 million guns and knives and rope in there, and they're gearing up because they've decided that they're going to be vigilantes for justice. And then it just kind of devolves into going through these different kind of like assassination, kind of hits that they're doing on the mob, and then Agent Smecker kind of piecing them back together. So you get the one where they're dropping in through like the ceiling. They're in this other one where they're in like this strip club thing. There's this other one at the house. Like I said, kind of the most compelling part to me is Willem Dafoe's character. He's kind of getting more and more pulled in to their ideals as this is going. And I think that is interesting, particularly by the time you get to like the kind of the last one at the house, where he's telling you what happened as all of the action is happening around him. I do think that is pretty interesting. And I think that his kind of character development is kind of interesting in a way. It's highly problematic in the way that he's portraying a homosexual character, I think. But I think that, just kind of like his mental like delusion as he's being sucked into what the MacManus brothers does is kind of interesting.
Yeah. I'm torn because I remember seeing this in the early 2000s. So I didn't see it when it came out in the theater, but I did see it, when I was in college. And I actually was like, wow, this is a gay person who's like deeply entrenched in like solving, like in the FBI. He's well respected. They might not like, they might not like that he's gay, but he pokes fun at it. And so maybe that's their way of his way of making people more comfortable with it. But like when he's on the clock. But what I did like was that it showed that you could be in a quote unquote normal like job that is seen by so many as like the good guys, right? Like, and still be gay. And in the late 90s, I don't remember there were a lot of shows where it's like, I'm not a drag queen. I'm not You know, I'm not a sex worker. Like I have a normal job and I'm actually really good at it. And so I thought that was kind of interesting, but yeah, there's just a lot of problematic epitaphs being used and thrown around.
That's right. Yeah.
I forgot.
That could basically be the motto for like the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah. And, but I do see why it still has this cult following, specifically for what you just said, right? Where the storytelling of how, you know, Agent Smecker's kind of unraveling of these issues and these, you know, this story of what happens at the end of these crime scenes, just looking at the crime and itself. And, you know, there's a great scene where I think we're 3 big crimes in, where he's had to pick up and repatch this story together of what happened with these vigilantes, and he doesn't yet. He's pretty sure he knows who it is. He's got pretty definitive evidence that it is these 3 individuals, and he goes to a church after having a very rough night. And there's this great scene where they are also the 3 vigilantes are also in the church, and they hear Agent Smecker talk to a priest. Now, I won't spoil the whole thing, that whole scene, but he basically says, I really want to help these guys because I have to follow the law because I am an FBI agent. And, you know, they're doing a lot of good by getting rid of all this trash, all these horrible people that are doing horrible things, and also are part of a system that is going to get them off. Like they're not targeting people that, you know, are, you know, just kind of your run-of-the-mill criminals. These are big kingpin criminals, and they're taking them out, and they're so good at it. And so he decides at that point to help them. And I just think Willem Dafoe kind of makes this whole thing work. And the writing is really clean in that it shows, I think it's very smartly written in the way that they show that these things unfold. And that's what takes up the bulk of the movie. It's not a super long movie. I think it's an hour and 40 minutes. But the bulk of it is unraveling these stories and getting to understand, you know, the change that happens through Agent Smecker, which I think is what makes it work. Because if you take away any of that, it's just a bunch of violence and, you know, a couple of funny scenes, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And and that scene in the church in the confession booth is kind of interesting, the way they do. But yeah, and then eventually kind of the story just, you know, it keeps kind of spiraling more and more out of control for Agent Smecker, and then it eventually ends up at the courthouse with kind of the big head of the mob there, and they're there to serve justice on him. And that's kind of where it ends. Like the story here really is, there's really not a lot happening. There's these 2 brothers. there's organized crime in their town. They don't like it, and they're just going to go kill everyone. And that's basically the story. Like you said, it gets tied together a little bit because of Willem Dafoe's character, and kind of his descent. But I don't know. For me, I think kind of the foundation of having like vigilante justice in the name of your God, if you're highly religious, like that story is kind of interesting and compelling. I don't think it does a very good job of telling that story. I think it like sets it up, but then it kind of, you know, devolves away from it, and doesn't really kind of see that through. And it's hard because Willem Dafoe is so great, and then you have, you know, two really good actors, but they're so young, so I don't know that they're able to kind of carry the story now, which is interesting because now I think Norman Reedus is incredible, and you can see shades of it in this. But I think that if they are doing a third one, if the story's a little bit better, I think that he has, you know, kind of the weight and the emotional depth to pull off that kind of a story better than he did when he was, you know, just an up and comer.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's a part in it where the head of the head of the Italian mob is, you know, worried because he sees that all of these other people were getting shot and killed left and right. And all of them are incredibly bloody, like violent scenes, right? It's really scaring this guy. So he goes to one of his higher ups and says, I need somebody to come and help like assassinate these 3 people that are basically hunting down all of my mafiosos and killing them. And they say, oh, well, let's you need the Duke. They call him the Duke. And apparently the Duke has been in jail from Ireland or somewhere for 30 years. And it's this scene, I think, really impressed upon me for the first time. This is watching it recently, because basically this guy, they treat him like Hannibal Lecter. Like he's got, obviously he's in chains. He's got like a chain thing that's attached from his feet all the way up to his neck. They like encase him in a steel cage. And then they tell him that he's granted parole. It's hilarious. If in a very dark comedic way, where it's like, oh, this guy is so terrifying. And he's just a complete monster, but we're going to let him go. And then as soon as he gets out, we're going to hire him to go find these three vigilantes. Right now, they, what's interesting is when they do meet, they realize that they're from the same family, that's back in Ireland, because they use this prayer. And so he basically joins in. And so, yeah, this very last scene where this, I don't know, I think he's Italian mobster. He's in the courthouse and they just show up and they tell everyone, hey, we're your saints and we're going to rid the cities and, city by city of all of the evil of organized crime. And, they get revered as these, saints. They call them the Saints of South Boston. Right. It's crazy that, the change where at the beginning, it's just these two kids that are like, oh, we've gotten into trouble. We've bitten off more than we can chew, but we made it out alive, turn it into this family of, vigilantism. And then of course, the last, 15, 20 seconds are all these people being interviewed on what their feelings are about these saints and whether or not they're good or bad. And in that way, it kind of feels like it's got a Batman-esque feel to it. But yeah, it was interesting. I hadn't seen it in a while. When did you watch this the first time?
So let's talk a little bit about that. You had mentioned that this is very much like it has a cult following because this movie came out in 1999 on a budget of about $6 million. It made like $30,000 on $6 million, which is not great. How does a movie lose $5,970,000 and get a sequel and a potential other sequel? Well, it does that because this movie came out in 1999, and that's when DVDs started to become a thing. So this really gained legs in that market. People were watching it at home, people were renting it, people were buying it. And yeah, this gained a huge cult following because this is a very stereotypical late 90s kind of movie. So, I mean, yeah, I probably watched it around then. I wouldn't have seen it in 1999, probably. Maybe like the year or two after that. But yeah, home video, because no one went and saw this at the theater. And I'm assuming you probably would have seen it about that same time, kind of in our college days, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I did not see this in the theater, and it shows because it only made $30,000.
That's right. The cast went and saw it at the theater, and that was the only people that went and saw it in the theater. But yeah, it was a home video rental and then a buy, I guess, when Blockbuster was going out of business. So yeah, that's where it really gained its legs. And I hadn't watched it in quite a while. I don't know if you've been able to tell through this. This is not my favorite movie, so it's not something that I go back and revisit it. But it was interesting to go back, almost 25 years on now at this point and watch it again through the lens of, having 25 years more experience on the earth, what you think about it and things like that. So going back and rewatching it, were there things that you noticed or just kind of your general feelings about it changed at all? Or, is it still kind of play off the same way that you thought that it did back then? Or,
so I liked, we should talk about one character, David Delarocco as David the Funny Man Delarocco. I don't know if he was playing himself or what, but there are a couple scenes that I had forgotten about where he's been asked to tell a joke to this mob boss, and he's trying to tell this joke and he's trying to tell it in a clean way. And they keep inserting these racial epithets into his story. And so at the end, it's supposed to be funny because he's really uncomfortable. You're watching it now, you're just like, man, this is really uncomfortable. Like you see that they're trying to be play on that, where he's actually a pretty good guy. Like he doesn't, I mean, he's in this crime syndicate, so he's seen some horrible stuff and he's done some horrible stuff, but he doesn't really, I don't know, like he's not an inherent racist or anything like that. And he's trying to tell this story and have it be funny. And it's like, you know, three people going, you know, or walking down the street, and that, you know, everyone else is trying to insert these things into themselves into it. And it didn't age well. Right. Like, and I hate that we say it didn't age well, because it's embarrassing that at the time, you know, this wasn't really thought of as not being appropriate or not being something that you say. Right. So I don't know. That was kind of interesting. And I hadn't seen this probably since 2009, because I did see the second one in the theater. And so I probably watched Boondock Saints this one to prepare for that one, just to see what happens, so that I didn't miss anything. But it's been a little while. Yeah, that's basically, I don't know. I remember really thinking it was smartly done and really liking it, but now there's certain parts of it that kind of, I don't know, don't resonate. I still think that the best scenes are the scenes where Willem Dafoe, especially the very last one, Willem Dafoe is in the same scene as these, you know, these boys, these men, doing the crime, but the way it's filmed is really cool. Where Willem Dafoe is explaining what he's seeing and what they're doing, and they're doing it right in front of him as if he's not there.
Right.
And I love that.
And I'd mentioned too that that's probably my favorite part, is just kind of watching his like descent into this, you know, this killing spree kind of that the two brothers are going on. That for me is probably the most interesting, and I think that could be a good story to tell. I just don't think that this was it. Like I said, this wasn't my favorite. I haven't watched it in a long time. You can definitely tell now, 25 years on, that this was really kind of riding on the coattails, and it was trying to do a lot of the same things. So this was just a couple years after like Pulp Fiction came out, a couple years after like Heat came out. The Big Lebowski had just come out the year before, and you could see that it was trying to be, you know, kind of this quippy, you know, fast talking, you know, kind of just like insane kind of dialogue stuff. For me, it just doesn't always connect. But yeah, it definitely has a cult following. Like I said, if they're planning to make a third one, I imagine that it's probably going to eventually start making money here. One of these days, they'll keep doing it and until it does it. But that is the Boondock Saints. So let us know at home if you have watched the Boondock Saints, what you think about it. If it's one of your, you know, favorite kind of cult followed movies, let us know that. Let us know what you think about it. Let us know if you make one of these cocktails, the Irish breakfast, because it's delicious and you should, and it is very lovely looking. So take pictures and tag us. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter. It's at Drink the Movies, and on Facebook.com/Drink the Movies. You can find our website with pictures of ours, the written recipe, all that stuff is at www.drinkthemovies.com. And after you have carried out some vigilante justice, we would appreciate it if you would be so kind as to leave us a review. Michaela, where should they be doing that?
You all can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere where Anchor podcasts are distributed. We do 2 drops a week. As you all know, we have the lobby bar, which is super fun, and that's on Tuesdays. And then we have our deeper dives on Thursdays. If you like what you're hearing, hey, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review. It really helps us get the Drink the Movies out there. We've had a lot of action. A lot of people come to us and request different cocktails and different movies, and we love that because sometimes we don't know what to watch, don't know what to drink. So if you have an idea, please send it our way. We would love to get you in on a Drink the Movies guest spot so we can highlight your cocktail or your favorite movie or your least
Yeah.
favorite movie. I mean, any movies. Just
Yeah,
bring them all our way.
Yes, send it all our way, and we'll be happy to talk about it and to drink it and watch it. So, do all that stuff. We definitely appreciate it. But now, Michaela, I think it's time we put Boondock Saints in the past, and we make our way on to next week into our next movie and our next cocktail, and we'll talk to everyone next time on
Drink the movies.
The movies.
No animals were harmed in the making of this film. I feel like it's important to say that.
That's right.
Given a very unfortunate incident with a cat.
Rest in peace, cat.
Rest in peace, kitty.